y bienvenidos a una nueva clase de emprendimiento. El día de hoy hablaremos sobre la última parte del libro de Lean Startup, la cual lleva por nombre Accelerate. Y también les invito a que puedan ver nuestros videos previos sobre el mismo tema, en los cuales analizamos the Lean Startup Method en su primera y segunda parte. As I mentioned, today we are going to be touching the last part of the Lean Startup, which is called Accelerate. In that way, we are going to have a wider knowledge of what is this method and how we can apply it. Here, the focus is how to get the Lean startups to speed through the build, measure, learn, feedback loop as quickly as possible. The content of today's lesson will be divided into batch, then grow, adapt, and innovate, and all together are going to form Accelerate, which is the last part of the whole method. Having said that, and without further ado, let's get started. The mission here is to speed and create small batches by establishing cross-functional teams to work together to rapidly deliver the MVP increment through the build, measure, learn, feedback loop. To keep focus of how much investment should be made in infrastructure, planning, incentives, marketing, sales, and other investments, everything should be made through the lens of lean practices, aiming to avoid the 7 types of waste, focusing on obtaining only validated learning. Although it may feel counterintuitive, working with small batch sizes is far more efficient than producing mass batches of a particular product. The reason? With small batches, quality problems can be identified and rectified much sooner than when producing big batches, saving a considerable amount of time and money in the long run. However, many traditional managers have a difficult time thinking about swapping from a large to a small batch mentality. This is because it is instinctively felt to be inefficient. The Lean Startup method focuses on formulating a hypothesis and getting the MVP on the market using the smallest batch size possible within the quickest time frame. Large batches do not allow for this kind of speed, and further, they prolong the validated learning process, making it much more difficult to adapt and fine-tune a successful product. What's more, small batches means smaller inventories, which thus frees up an ample amount of warehouse space and money. The author of the Lean Startup method says that sustainable growth is characterized by one simple rule. New customers come from the actions of past customers, and there are 4 ways in which past customers foster sustainable growth. First one is word of mouth. This is the result of customers feeling incredibly positive about certain product as a side effect of product usage. This refers to exposure to a product, such as when a friend invites us to use a new online payment method, such as PayPal, so they can transfer us some money. Through funded advertising. For this to be a source of sustainable growth, it must be being paid out of the revenue instead of being paid out of the investment capital. Repeat purchase or use. For products such as subscription plans, for example Netflix, those products are designed to encourage people to keep buying in the future so they can enjoy all the benefits of those products. All of these forms of sustainable goal can be found in the whole methodology of the Lean Startup method. However, the author also identified the engines of growth, engines through which any company can become successful. While companies can employ more than one engine of growth simultaneously, the author of the Lean Startup states that it is more often the case that successful startups will focus on just one of those engines and specialize in it. The goal is to build an adaptive organization, one that automatically adjusts its processes and performance to current conditions. You cannot trade quality for time. The quality sacrifices that you'll make now will affect seriously your product in the future. The key is to find a balance between quality and speed, adapting to the needs of the organization at any given time using the 5 whys. The core of this method is to get a better picture of the reality behind what a particular process failed and to avoid jumping to quick and supported conclusions. This method quite literally means that you ask the same why questions 5 times consecutively in an attempt to uncover the truth. For example, imagine that a machine in the production line has stopped functioning. Here's how the 5 whys might look in practice, and we might ask, why did the machine stop? Because it was overloaded. Why it was overloaded? Because it wasn't lubricated effectively. Why it wasn't lubricated effectively? Because the lubrication pump isn't working optimally. Why it is not working optimally? Because its internal shaft mechanism is worn out. Why is the shaft worn out? Because we don't have a system in place in which a member of the staff regularly checks the lubrication pump shaft. The 5 whys also encourage validated learning, and it promotes asking questions more thoroughly to get a better understanding of the reality of a problem. However, to be really effective, the 5 whys must be asked within the environment of mutual trust, as otherwise they can quickly descend into means of blaming different teams members. To avoid this, the author of the Lean Startups suggests that entrepreneurs follow those 2 rules. First, be tolerant of all mistakes just the first time. And second, never allow the same mistake to be made twice. A traditional understanding of the way companies develop over time suggests that once they reach a certain size, they begin to lose the ability to innovate and grow. But this is a fake belief. As long as companies are prepared to adapt to a more flexible management philosophy, innovation can fuel the direction of peak. For any company, large or small, to foster innovation they are required of 3 structural attributes. First, scarce but secure resources. Startups need significantly less capital than established businesses. Still, that capital must be safe from any form of tampering, as startups are incredibly sensitive to any changes made to the budget mid-course. Second, independent development authority. Startups team require full autonomy to think creatively and develop market new products. Third, a personal stake in the outcome. Entrepreneurs should have a personal stake in the success of their products. When a company reaches a certain size, innovation can be seen to be threatening, as it requires a shift in operations and established managerial systems, which demands a great deal of effort. The author of the Lean Startup suggests that in more established companies, innovation sandbox should be created, which will contain any impact of the experimentation and innovation within it, but in which the members of the startup team will have full freedom to innovate as they like to do. For an innovation sandbox to be truly effective, it must adhere to the following rules. First, any team can create an experiment that only affects the sandbox parts of the product or service. Second, the same team must see the experiment through from start to finish. Third, no experiment can run longer than the specified time. Fourth, no experiment can affect more than the specified number of customers. Fifth, every experiment has to be evaluated by 5 to 10 actionable metrics. Sixth, each sandbox team must use the same metrics to evaluate success. Seventh, any team leading an experiment must monitor the metrics and customer interactions while the test is in progress and put an immediate end to it if something catastrophic happens. Thanks to the fact that the same metrics are being used each time, it's very simple to assess whether a sandbox experiment has been a failure or a success. Further, by consistently using the same metrics, the team cultivates a solid literacy concerning these metrics for the company as a whole. What's more, the Innovation Sandbox embodies the Lean Startup method, and in that it promotes rapid iteration, small batches, quick outcomes, and constant validated learning. As you can see, the Lean Startup is going to give you all the tools that you need for your startup to grow in a very sustainable way. Please stay tuned for more lessons and subscribe to our channel, since it will help us a lot to keep growing the channel. That was it for today's video. Thank you for watching. Bye.